All right. I'd like to call this meeting of the County Commissioners to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence for all those that have given their lives for our freedom. Thank you very much. I think our president is running a little short, so we're going to start without him here. First of all, we have some correspondence. Kent County Arts has a thank you letter. Dear Commissioners, on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Kent County Arts Council, I want to thank you for your generous grant of $10,000 to support our work through the fiscal year 2019. Next, we have the Upper Shore Score. It's also thank you for the support to continue and supplement our SCORE activities in Kent County. Please share our appreciation with the Board of Kent County Commissioners. We have a letter of support from a Judy and Tom Knoll, and it says, to the Kent County Commissioner's Office, to whom it may concern. My husband and I are writing this letter to voice our support for the owners of Bayshore Campground and the improvements they would like to make to the resort. We are owners of property in Rock Hall, which happens to be located directly across the road from the campground. Also, we enjoy being frequent visitors of Rock Hall to visit family and conveniently stay at the campground in our RV. We've been RVers for years and have stayed at many campgrounds, and Bayshore is definitely one of the nicest, cleanest, and most peaceful we've ever had the pleasure of staying. Our grandchildren find so much enjoyment there, and it is such a good feeling seeing all the families there enjoying the good, clean fun that this country definitely needs more of. I have a problem understanding why anybody would be against this campground. Not only is it a wonderful place to visit, but it provides a lot of patrons for Rock Hall businesses such as grocery stores, restaurants, and shops. If you need me to speak to my husband or myself, please feel free to call us. Then we have a letter here from Xfinity, Mrs. Heller. We recently shared with you a number of new, simpler pricing and package options that have been made available to residents in your community. Customer satisfaction is a priority for us at Comcast, and we continue to create ways to deliver more value, flexibility, transparency, and choice for the communities we serve. To that end, starting June the 27th, a TV box and remote will no longer be included in our packages, and we will reduce the price of applicable packages accordingly. And this is sincerely Kevin Broadhurst, Vice President of Government and Regulatory Affairs. This is another letter from Comcast. At Comcast, we continue to innovate and deliver more value, flexibility, and choice to our customers. On June 28, 2018, we will introduce the following new Choice TV package options, giving customers even more choice for a personalized experience. Choice TV at $30 per month will include limited basic stream picks and HD programming. A TV box, cable card, or compatible customer-owned equipment will be required for customers to receive Choice TV services. Up to 10 hours of cloud DVR service is included for those customers who have their X1 equipment or compatible customer-owned equipment and Xfinity Internet services. And there's a whole list of other things that they offer. I have two sets of minutes, a regular session minutes and a liquor minutes. Need a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed unanimously. We have a raffle permit from the Community Volunteer Fire Company of Millington for combined gaming devices on July the 20th, 2018. Need a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Raffle permit passed unanimously. Then we have four special Class C licenses. Colchester Community Association Beer and Wine, July the 14th, 2018. Community Volunteer Fire Company Beer, Wine, and Liquor on July the 20th through the 21st, 2018. Betterton Volunteer Fire Company Beer, Wine, and Liquor, August the 3rd to the 4th. And Rock Hall Lions Club Beer only, August the 11th. These being needing alcohol beverage, needing a public hearing. We'll consider this our public hearing. Anyone in the audience that would like to have any comments for or against these applications, feel free to do so at this time. There being none.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Passed unanimously. We have a public hearing now. Rob Edler, you want to come up? I'm going to read the notice aloud. Application has been made, and I apologize if I mess these names up too bad. Application has been made by Sushil Khanna, member, 394 Cypress Street, Millington, Maryland, 21651, and Ankit Khanna, member, 394 Cypress Street, Millington, Maryland, 21651, and Rashmi Khanna, member, 394 Cypress Street, Millington, Maryland, 21651, representing Shurin Group, LLC, for a Class A beer, wine, and liquor license off sales in parentheses on the premises known as Sassy River Market 2, 120 East Cross Street, Galena, Maryland, 21635, which shall authorize the holder thereof to keep for sale and to sell beer, wine, and liquor at retail at the place that therein described for consumption elsewhere. A hearing on said application will be held by the undersigned in the County Commissioner's Hearing Room, R. Clayton Mitchell Jr. Government Center, 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland, on July the 10th, 2018 at 6:00 p.m., at which time any exceptions to the application will be heard. By order of the Board of License Commissioners for Kent County, Maryland, Sandra M. Blackston, the clerk. Published in the Kent County News, 6/4/18 and 6/21/18. You want to swear everybody in?
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly promise or swear on the penalties of perjury that the testimony you are about to give in the matter before us shall be true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
That's you guys. Please have a seat.
Okay, yes, the Khannas purchased the Sassy River Market in Galena, and which has already been a licensed establishment, and gone through the process to get their own license. They've gone through successfully, taken the tips class, and they're ready to go.
Everything's checked out.
Except, and I want to double check, we haven't received official notice from the health department,
Okay.
but that's just pending.
And they don't currently have license elsewhere?
No. No.
Anyone in the audience want to comment on this application? Feel free to do so. John? Mayor Carroll from Galena.
I just wanted to say, as the mayor of Galena, that I always support their application here this evening. I've known Sushil and his family for a long time. They're really great people, and they're a great addition to our business.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else? Anything else to add?
Usually warn them about serving underage.
That's after we approve it.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
We do warn everybody and every applicant that comes before us that we take selling to minors seriously, so just be careful. I understand. And I tell you, I have talked to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Catherine Dilly, excuse me.
There's one more public hearing.
There's another public hearing.
Code Home Rule 3-2-19 to 18.
I'm sorry. I jumped ahead of myself. Look, I'm just a substitute tonight. I don't get it. We have another public hearing on Code Home Rule Bill number 3-2018. And it was introduced by William W. Pickram, President of the Board of County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, which is an act to amend Chapter 171 Agricultural Preservation Districts, 171-7, Sale of Easements to the Code of Public Local Laws of Kent County, Maryland. The purpose of the amendments to this chapter is to add provisions that create withheld acreage language that is consistent with the state of Maryland's applicable policies. This hearing will be held on July the 10th, 2018 at 6 p.m. in the Commissioner's Hearing Room, Mark Clayton Mitchell Jr., Kent County Government Center, 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland. If you require communication assistance, please contact the County Commissioner's Office at 410-778-4600 or visit Maryland Relay at www.mdrelay.org no later than July the 6th, 2018. A complete copy of the proposed legislative bill is available in the Commissioner's Office, 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland, Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. and on the county's website at www.kentcounty.com. By order of the Kent County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, signed Sandra M. Blackston, Clerk, published in the Kent County News on 6/28/18. And Amy, would you like to come forward and explain to us, talk to us about this bill? Thank you.
I won't take this personally that from time to time you try to skip over my public hearings, but
You're the last person I'm going to skip over, Amy.
This code amendment was first read a couple of weeks ago. Got a first reading, and I just wanted to point out that there was a typo that was corrected between the first reading and this public hearing. And what this sale of easement provision does for the county code is it brings it in line with the withheld acreage policies of the mouth provisions. And so we've added 3 provisions that allow for exclusion from a mouth easement. One for land that is planned for non-commercial public purpose, and the remainder of the farm has to be at least 50 acres in an ag operation. Another exclusion is for land for an existing commercial use or business that has been permitted in accordance with the ordinance, and with provision that the remainder farm is at least 50 acres. And then the final provision is for an exclusion of leased land for personal wireless facilities or other public utilities in accordance with the ordinance provisions. Again, with the remainder farm and agricultural production at 50 acres or at least 50 acres.
And I'll take a minute and read this letter from the Kent County Planning Commission into the record. It says, Dear Mr. Pickram, at its meeting on April 5th, 2018, the Kent County Planning Commission reviewed and discussed the sale of easement provisions found in Chapter 171-7 of the County Code. The County Code requires that the easement and hence the agricultural preservation district shall be on the entire farm. There are certain instances where this has not been feasible and has affected the ability for a landowner to establish a district and submit an application to sell an easement to the Maryland Agricultural Land Preservation Foundation, MALF. Since MALF has a policy that addresses withheld acreage, the Planning Commission recommends the county code be amended to be consistent with MALF's policy. So they are fully in compliance or in agreement with us moving forward.
They are, and the Agricultural Preservation Board also recommended favorably.
Very good. So we can do that now?
No. This will be considered for a vote on August 7th
We allow public comment
until this Friday, July 13th at noon.
very good. Okay. That's it. Thank you very much.
Amy, are you sticking around or are you leaving? We'll have a seat a second. I just want to get a few updates.
Okay, sure.
As far as with the buses and how's that progressing for Wharton?
Today was the submittal deadline for the site plan and special exception application for the Board of Education. And Joe Wheeler has been working with me and with Mike Molds to meet that deadline successfully, and we did that today. So we have a complete submittal. The application will be heard by the Planning Commission at its August 2nd meeting. They'll make a recommendation to the Board of Appeals, who will decide the case on the 20th, I believe, the third Monday in August.
Okay. Number two, we heard a positive letter about the campground in Rock Hall in support of it, but we got a notification from the judge this past week that it's got to go to court now instead. So how's that proceed or how's that move along?
We had filed for, the county had filed for a declaratory judgment in circuit court. And what happened was when the county filed, the judge entertained a motion for summary relief, which meant that the judge entertained a motion to review the case administratively. In doing so, the judge has opined that there are certain facts that she could make where there was no contest, but she's decided that the case should proceed to trial for, not to trial, to court for legal arguments.
And how?
That has not been scheduled yet,
Okay.
but I do have a meeting set up tomorrow with the planning attorney to look at that.
Okay.
I'm still hoping to work with the property owner to proceed as soon as this is settled with application for growth allocation and site plan review. Some of the details that have to be deliberated are really looking at the intensity of that use on site, which is certainly has expanded beyond 65 sites, which were clearly articulated in the 1972 Board of Appeals decision. But that decision isn't as clear as it might be. Otherwise, we would have been able to proceed with a clean application for site plan and growth allocation.
Okay, and finally, the farm in Kennedyville, or Lynch rather, the chicken farm, has that all resolved itself? And
That project was planned and was scheduled for hearings this month, and there was a snafu with one of the aspects of the existing operation in terms of one of the plans that is required to be in place for the operation. It's really it's an update to the maintenance of a stormwater facility, but that stormwater management plan, which is required to be in place, is not current. So they're addressing that right now, the property owner. They're addressing the proper construction of this stormwater conveyance so that Soil Conservation District may reapprove their stormwater plan. It's their as-built that is required to document that they're in compliance with stormwater revealed non-compliance. So
How's that possible when a facility's only a few years old?
apparently the stormwater conveyance that is there was not constructed in accordance with the plan that was approved. So they have to come into compliance with the plan that was approved. This was discovered in an as-built survey. And it has something to do with the operation moving to an organic operation, whereas I guess originally when the conveyance was installed, there wasn't an organic designation in place. So it's sort of as their business has evolved and their operation has been operating, their operation has been moving forward, some of these nuances have been.
So it's a state approval, not a county approval, correct? It's going through state, Kent County Soil Conservation?
Yes,
Right.
it is.
Okay.
So that construction was supposed to have started already. It's been delayed for the next week. The property owner, I talked to the contract purchaser today. They expect that construction to start next week and for the process to be smooth for that same August timeframe that I just described for the Board of Ed. So they should both be on the August agendas.
Okay. Sounds
But
good.
it's a finding that has to be made by the Planning Commission and the Board of Appeals, and the applicant did not want to proceed through the review process with loose ends, because if the board can't approve the case, if they make findings, they can't make all the findings, the applicant has to wait another year to apply. So they would rather wait a month than wait another year for application.
All right. Thank you.
And you keep us abreast of after your conversation with the planning attorney about the campground.
Oh, certainly.
You'll keep us abreast of what's going on. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
See you, James.
See you.
Now Catherine Dilly, Director of Midshore Behavioral Health. Mary Beth Brenneman, Kent County Behavioral Health Coordinator. A new Executive Director, Annual Update.
Hi. Katie Billy. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Hi.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming.
Absolutely. So annually, we present to each county that Midshore Behavioral Health represents, with the hope that you all will continue to allow us to have the pleasure to serve as the core service agency for the county. So historically, we've done these presentations in May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. We had a hard time getting on the books. You guys are busy. So we are a little delayed in our process, but we are happy to be here and hope that we'll walk away this evening with an agreement to continue to move forward as your core service agency. But we like to refresh your memory of what our core service agency mission and vision is. And the mission of Midshore Behavioral Health is to continually improve the provision of behavioral health services for residents of Caroline, Dorchester, Kent, Queen Anne's, and Talbot counties through effective coordination of care and collaboration with our consumers, natural support systems, providers, and the community at large. And our vision at Midshore Behavioral Health is a rural behavioral health care delivery system that is clinically and culturally competent, and the system that will ensure access, have a community focus, be cost effective, and be integrated to serve our community as a whole. So during our annual presentations, we like to do a comparison of our change in our current budget from FY18 to FY 2018, or FY17 rather, to 2018. And this year, we did have an increase in our funding provided by the Behavioral Health Administration from $3.7 million to $4,220,144. The bulk of that increase was to support the Maryland Opioid Rapid Response Grant. So that brought in $368,411 extra into our budget in FY18. And as you may be familiar, at our AF Whitsitt Center, that funding has allowed for 4 crisis beds to be embedded in their system of care to be serving our individuals facing opioid addiction that are in need of crisis admission for treatment. So that's something new that's come on board this year. We had the pleasure to work with Andrew Pons very closely at the AF Whitsitt Center before his retirement to help get the organization ready to provide that service at the AF Whitsitt Center. And currently that funding is running through the end of April of 19, and we're looking to have some sustainability through additional grant dollars coming. So more to come on that. But it's definitely been a wonderful resource to the county in Kent, but as well as our Midshore residents. We've seen a real increased access and treatment, which is a positive. At Midshore, we also are the continuum of care for the 5 counties. So we manage housing and urban development funding to support our homeless population, as well as state funding for emergency housing services and prevention. So with our housing funding, as well as our behavioral health administration funding, our total annual funding in FY18 was $4,987,238. We are looking at some expanded funding in 19. One piece that we're really excited about is our mobile crisis team, which we have a Kent County team. The goal is by January 1st that with this additional funding, they will be 24/7 capacity, which is great. So right now, currently, the teams are serving 15 hours a day. So from midnight until 8 a.m., they do not have a team available to respond. But the goal is with this additional funding in 19 that we will be able to provide response 24/7 to residents of Kent County, as well as our Midshore, Cecil, and some of our Wicomico County consumers. So it's very exciting. We have 2 new positions at our agency this year. We have a position that is dedicated just to working with the aging population that are facing behavioral health needs specifically. So we have a new employee that's just serving that population. And she is actually helping to serve the 8 counties of the Eastern Shore, not including Cecil. And we have a new position supporting the Social Security Outreach, Access, and Recovery Initiative, which is SOAR, is the acronym. And this case manager is working specifically with individuals that are in need of Social Security benefits, that are presenting with behavioral health needs, and are facing homelessness. So that's a new resource internally at Midshore that we have now currently as a resource to the area, which has been great. I'm going to let Mary Beth Brenneman, who is your behavioral health coordinator assigned to Kent County, and she also represents supporting our special populations on the Midshore, talk about some Kent County kind of highlights of FY18 in review.
So one of the big things at FY18 was the Kent County behavioral health providers getting accredited and then being approved under the new regulations. So that was difficult for some of the smaller providers, but they did it, and they all have successfully completed that. That's really good news, especially by the deadline. We also remain involved with the Kent County Opioid Intervention Team and attend the local Drug and Alcohol Abuse Council.
If I can interrupt for a minute, the intervention teams that you were referring to, what would they do? I mean, if they find out that someone is dealing with a problem, they'll go and visit that person and try to.
Well, I know that in Kent County, with your opioid intervention team dollars, you have been able to hire 2 peer support specialists at the health department. which has been a wonderful resource to the county. Those two individuals came on board, I think, halfway through the year, and are now embedded, collaborating with the health department as well as the emergency department at the hospital, with meeting folks that have presented following an overdose or are struggling with substance-related issues. And having that peer contact face-to-face outside of a clinical contact really has been proven to make a bigger impact in terms of investment in folks electing to enter treatment. So we've seen a huge success with the peer movement, and that's been supported through your opioid intervention dollars. And I believe that in 19, the intention is to continue to support those two support specialists with that funding. And we've had the pleasure of serving on that team to help with programming for those dollars that have been provided by the state for that, which has proven to be very effective. And I know the admission rate at the Whitsitt Center has increased as a result of the peers being involved to help encourage entering treatment.
I bet you 4 beds doesn't go too far, does it?
It doesn't, but those 4 beds actually are time limited, so they really only allow crisis intervention, so the admission stay cannot exceed 4 days. So within those 4 days, the individuals entering treatment are triaged, so to speak, at an acute level to either enter continued stay at the residential side of the Whitsitt Center. Some of them are also, reconnected with providers back out in the community and starting medication-assisted treatment. Of course, some folks do elect to leave, which is something,
It's very few, though.
Very few.
Surprisingly, I thought there would be more.
But the majority of the folks that are entering the Whitsitt Center in the crisis bed capacity have rolled over into the residential side.
You have a number of beds on the residential
Yes,
side
the
there.
residential side is very robust, and I know it expanded in 17, I believe, a whole additional unit opened. So these 4 beds are just a fast track to get into treatment. Whereas before, the length of time to enter the Whitsitt Center wasn't extraordinarily long, but this definitely has allowed for a quicker admission process.
And you said you work in 4 different counties.
5.
5.
Mm-hmm.
Are these the only beds in those 5 counties, or do you have facilities somewhere else?
There's a facility in Dorchester County, but they do not have crisis bed capacity. The Whitsitt Center is the only facility in our region that has this crisis bed capacity. And they also have 4 crisis beds that are earmarked for folks that have more mental health related crisis. So they actually have 8 beds that are crisis in nature. But these 4 are specifically supporting our folks facing the opioid crisis. Sure.
And it's less complicated to get in than the other places.
Right.
So.
And the dollars also support transportation as well, which was a big piece that we advocated for when we applied for the funding, to allow for folks to have the ability to come to treatment as well as return to their county of origin. The priority population is the Midshore, but we have seen folks come from the Western Shore seeking treatment at the Whitsitt Center because they might be one of the only places that has a bed open. But if they need help getting back to their point of origin, there's transportation dollars there to help with that as well. Sure.
Sure. We also, back in, I believe it was August, were requested by the Behavioral Health Administration to develop a strategic plan around our crisis system, kind of shoot for if it was a perfect system to meet all your needs, what would it look like? This plan was going to be presented to legislation to figure out what was needed in our state. So we developed, we worked with hospitals, law enforcement, health officers, pretty much everybody, and of course our crisis response teams to try to figure out what we could do for the 5 Midshore counties. And we also partnered with Cecil, since we do cover Cecil County as well. So we developed this really nice plan, which some of that, this extra 24/7 for the mobile crisis teams, the information we provided kind of backed that up. We requested those funds. So we that was like a good partnership, especially with our Kent County partners. We also, for the past 2 years, we've been supporting the NAMI affiliate for Kent and Queen Anne's. We started on the steering committee to kind of help guide them. I remember I helped them develop a resource guide for Kent County specifically to kind of help get them started. And then we still participate with them monthly to kind of help them figure out where their resources for when they need help, help them with support groups, whatever they need, weekend events, setting up tables, that sort of thing. And then I think personally, one of the things I do is provide resources and help with complicated consumer situations. And I would say Kent County is probably one of the most difficult counties, along with Dorchester, to have many of those cases. So, and the peers have been phenomenal with helping with that. Like,
Really?
they've done almost all the work for me now. So by the time it comes to me, they've done everything that I would have done to help the individual. So it's really helped my work, and I think it's really helped some of those really difficult cases get where they needed to be instead of jail. Yeah. Oh, our annual Caliber Awards this year, we were able to give the award to the Circle program that's funded by the local management board. It is helping families affected by incarceration, mainly the caregivers and their children. So they've done a phenomenal job. So they were recognized for their work this year in our awards.
Really, really amazing work they're doing.
Very good.
And then, of course, Andrew Pons got the Lifetime Achievement Award.
Andrew Pons did get the Lifetime Achievement Award. And just an interesting statistic, just so you know, we did see an increase from our fiscal year 2016 to our fiscal year 2017, a little over 10% increase in the number of persons served in the county in our behavioral health system under the publicly funded Medicaid system. So there was an increase from 816 individuals to 900 in fiscal 17. This data gets captured in the fall, so we'll be able to have our 18 data to report out to you all next spring, early summer when we come back. And we certainly have been very pleased to have Dr. Spencer serve on our board of directors at Midshore Behavioral Health, and I know that his time is limited with his term on our board, and I just want to take this as an opportunity to say it's been a real pleasure working with him. He's certainly been very supportive of our organization and its mission, and so compliment to his work as well.
Certainly pass that on, and we feel the same way, so. Yeah.
It's been great. So I think that's all we have.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions?
You guys do a good job.
Thank you.
I mean, obviously, do we have to put this in the form?
We had provided the letter. We'll just need, when at your convenience, I believe that was mailed in June. If you could just have it signed and returned to us, that's fine.
That'd be fine. Thank you.
That works for us.
Enjoyed hearing your discussion.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure.
Fortunately, you've got a lot of work to do.
We do. We do.
It's good work, though.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
I got one question. Are you hearing much? I mean, because just recently I've been told that we had a little issue with fentanyl
Oh, absolutely.
in the county where it's gotten a little out of control. Are they using that mess as a sole product, or are they cutting it still and all that kind of stuff? I mean, I always thought they cut it in to make it, but I've been told recently that they're going pure form.
Right. I've recently heard reports of more of the pure form in like a pill form on the street being masked as like Xanax or
Right.
other pills. But yes, it's unfortunate that I think it's finding its way into a lot of things, and it's very scary. I know that at the local Drug and Alcohol Abuse Council at the beginning of June, we talked about that, and I know the sheriff reported out, seeing an increase of that, as well as just concern noted with some of the legalization efforts around marijuana and seeing the impact that that's having as well. So we have a lot of work to do. Certainly a very scary time, and but I do think that the county's done a nice job with pulling together and collaborating to do what they can to, at least for public awareness. We were just talking about it earlier today at our office. We understand that Kent is looking to go purple, and we are in full support of that, and actually would like to contribute to the effort if we can. So I think the more education we have out there in our community, that's the biggest way I think we're going to be able to control some of these folks making decisions that are safer. It's a very scary time.
Some of the ones they're making today certainly aren't safe, that's for sure.
Oh gosh, no.
That's terrible.
Yeah, it's
And the stigma around getting treatment, I think that's where the education and awareness will help too, that it's okay to go get help. And,
right.
And it would be one thing if it only affected that individual, but it affects the family. So
Absolutely.
everybody all around.
Well, yeah.
It doesn't discriminate.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Age range, socioeconomic status, yeah.
It's really pivoted our work as well, from being historically very focused around obviously serving folks dealing with mental health needs, but we have changed our responsibility to also support behavioral health in the continuum, so substance-related needs as well. And just in the last couple of years with this opioid crisis, I mean, that has been such a focus of our work. Definitely, it's hit everywhere, and I think it's going to take all the community partners to really step up. It's just not one entity's responsibility to work out how we're going to get a handle on this.
Unfortunately, it's very few families that aren't affected somehow.
Right, right. Agreed.
Across the country.
Mhm.
It's really
It's becoming
scary.
more of a common denominator, and that's really scary.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming in and discussing it with us, and good luck to you. And we can ever help in any way, please come back and let us know. It's
Absolutely.
certainly a problem we're all interested in.
Mhm.
I'd like to be able to see you be put out of a job someday, but I'm not sure that's going to
I
happen.
know, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Pat Merritt, Chief Finance Officer, with some financial statements. She's found us some money, Billy. That her expression on her face.
I don't know if that's
Every year.
that might not be the same look I see.
Scares us, gets us all excited, and then comes in with a pile of money.
Well, actually, the results are very close to the projection that we talked about at budget time, so it's kind of tracking very much where we thought it would, as we've been talking about. So in the general fund, the revenues are pretty much right on track with budget. We're about $12,275,000 under where we thought we'd be, according to budget. And on the expenditure side, we're actually favorable by about $1.5 million. So that's pretty much the target area we were in when we were projecting for the budget. So we're kind of right where we thought we would be. As far as the variances on the revenue side, we have more interest income. Interest rates are coming up. Service charges have been favorable. Property taxes slightly favorable. Fines and forfeitures and income taxes are pretty much where we thought they would be. Unfortunately, the bad news in this is that our third and fourth revenue, the property transfer tax and the recordation transfer tax, continue to show unfavorable variances. So they're
Those taxes are current, right? It's not like property or income tax where it's 2 years out. That's current. But yet I talk to realtors, they're busy as can be. They're selling home after home. They're running out of inventory. So how can that number be going
Are they closing on the properties? Have they closed?
They're closing. I mean, it's just,
This is a cumulative number throughout the year, so I'm trying to remember, I'm struggling to remember what those variances were last time. I think they're pretty much consistent, but what we would expect to see is that those variances would go down if that's what's happening. I can take a look at the trends and get back to you and see what it's been for the last couple months.
I mean, I was just talking to a realtor today. He says, inventory's low, but every home they're getting now is pretty much going to market pretty quick and turning it over. It's just unreal that those couple numbers here in Kent County are staying where they're at.
Yeah, like I said, I can look at the trends and see if there's been any improvements since last time we looked at it. I don't think they've moved a whole lot, but
You have to remember this is a comparison to budget
Right.
as well, so it just depended on what was in the budget.
right, I think what would be helpful for you to see is kind of how it's been every month, and what the trend has been to budget.
Comparing actual to actual.
With being married to somebody in the real estate business, I have the same question as Billy has, because when you hear them talk, it seems as though it's property, as Billy just described, properties are selling, at least in certain areas, and maybe they got off to a slow start, but it seems like for the last 6 months, things have been percolating right along. Now, maybe it's just in certain pockets or areas, but I hear the same thing that Billy's hearing.
Well, I'll look at the trend line and I'll get you some more information on that. Like I said, it is a comparison to the budget. I'm trying to remember, I think the budget was pretty much flat. I don't think we were projecting a big increase over last year. So I'm wondering if, even though the activity is ticking up, if it's exceeding last year's level. And that would kind of be, if that makes sense.
This is saying that like the recordation tax is $78,000 below what it was this time last year.
It's below budget, and I believe the budget was based on last year's level. So, but I can get you some more information on that and send it to you, because it sounds like you're both here on the same.
I'm not doubting your figures, but I'm just saying, if you listen to the realtors, and unfortunately, well, I hear one a lot. Good sometimes is good sometimes, but they say the same thing, that things have been going along reasonably well. I don't know.
Okay, I'll have to take a look at that. And we did budget for those numbers to remain relatively consistent as they have been. So if we're seeing an upward tick, that might be good news for next year also. So I'll take a better look at that and I'll get back to you. On the expenditure side, the largest favorable variance is in operating expenditures. And again, we talked about that at budget time. You can see the departments that are running favorable there. And we also have about $365,000 favorable variance in salaries and benefits, and most of that's due to turnover and savings during those times. The contingency fund, we still have $239,000 favorable variance there, so you guys have done really well with the contingency fund.
I would say really the staff has done a better job. They found a way to do it. I'm not sure how much we had to do with it. They've been pretty good at not.
that's pretty good, because I thought Wayne was starting to go through it pretty quick there towards the end.
Several of the items that you had approved, they found ways to make it work without actually touching the
Yeah.
contingency. So you had approved items, and then it didn't end up being charged to contingency.
Yeah,
You're right, I think that
I'm
you approved it right down to nothing.
but
Oh.
no, I think that they're very proactively managing their budgets. They're really, they're on top of them, and they're moving dollars around when they can, and shaving where they can to get other things that they'd like to insert. So I think it's done well.
Yeah, sure have.
Okay. So the next one that you have is water wastewater. And this one, water wastewater looks a lot more favorable than it did when last we spoke. So on the revenue side, it's pretty much flat to budget. The revenues are going to be about a little less than $2,000 unfavorable. On the expenditure side, however, it looks like the expenditures are going to come in about $100,000 less than we budgeted. And this is basically because of two capital repairs that cannot be completed in FY18. And that's the Wesley Chapel Pump Station and the Kennedyville Wastewater Treatment Plant. So, see Mike's in the audience tonight, but I think that probably...
So he's going to take all the credit 1 week on the job?
But he probably will be coming in to talk to you. I mean, obviously, if we don't spend it in 18, we're probably going to spend it in 19, so it's really just a shifting of dollars, so...
Really not a problem, like we all are.
Yes.
If we can't spend it now, we gotta spend it next year.
Right. So the transfer will come in under this year and probably increase by that amount in 19. But if you were to take the impact of that transaction away, we are running pretty much at budget in all the other areas. That really is the largest variance in here. The capital projects statements are also in here. We spent a little under $1.9 million in the government projects. The broadband, the largest unfavorable, the largest project that isn't reflected here is the broadband. We have that money in an escrow account, and we're working on updating those figures with Mr. Yeager as to what's been paid out so far. So that'll be reflected on the June statements. But you can see the other projects that have been spent there. And on the wastewater side, we have spent just a little under $800,000 on the projects that have been budgeted there. And that's the Fairleigh Delta Heights project, the Galena project, and the Millington preliminary engineering report. You can see where those projects stand. And that's.
Have you had any conversations with Jane since the fiscal year's ended?
I reached out to her to get a copy of the budget for our records, and I think she was on vacation last week, so I'm sure we'll connect this week.
Yeah.
Just finalize that.
All right.
Anything else?
Looks good.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you.
Amy Lee, Director of Economic Development, with an update.
You're actually the director now, right?
Actually, I'm going to start by showing you something on the screen. So I'm going to talk about the incentives for businesses in Kent County. And there are a lot of them. So rather than remember all the details of each one, just want to remind people that they are available on the website. The website, if you go to kentcounty.com/business, and then click on business support, there's actually a tab for incentives. And under incentives, we are adding all the incentives that businesses can take advantage of from the state, the county, and even the towns on this site. So there's one place for them to go to get the information they need. So a couple that I'm going to talk about today with a Senate bill that went through this legislative process opens up some opportunities for the More Jobs for Marylanders Act, as well as the One Maryland tax credit that Kent County businesses now have available to them. But in addition to that, we've got the Commerce Zone tax credit, which was enacted last year by the commissioners on the county level, job creation tax credit that's been out there, but we just put a placeholder on the website where they can go and actually find out the information. The enterprise zone that was done back in 2015 or 2016, the innovation internships that we do with Washington College, and that's trying to place Washington College students with businesses during their spring and fall semester, or fall and spring semester, and so they can start making connections to the community and learning more about not just the college campus, but expanding out to the town of Chestertown, the county, Kent County, and also the region. We've had Queen Anne's County actually had the Wye River School in Centerville had a Washington College intern through this program last year, and Jean Faby from Queen Anne's County will be promoting it more this year with the businesses in Queen Anne's County. And then the PACE program. Chestertown is a hub zone, so we've got that information on there as well. The Vineyard Initiative, which is through the Upper Shore Regional Council. the Kent County Revolving Loan Fund, and the Greater Chestertown Initiative Loan Fund. But on each of these, you can actually go in and click. So example, the Commerce Zone tax credit, you can click on Read More, and then it goes in and gives you more information, as well as some documents, the application, the legislation that enacted the credit. And then in addition to that, we've recently added this questions or comments section so that I will get an email if they want more information on that particular incentive. So I just wanted to show you guys that, because there are a lot of things out there, and I don't remember the details of all of them. I still have to go back and make sure that I'm getting the right credit to tell them what they qualify for.
Hey, Jay, I don't know if I don't think this has been done. I know we talk about it sometimes at COG and so forth. But can you put together a letter with the bullet points of all those different credits and so forth, and actual mail to all the incorporated towns, to the mayors, so it can go on record in their meetings to say this, because a lot of these things have happened just in the last couple of years. So just so if they can read it into their minutes, and hopefully their citizens in their towns are sitting there at the meeting, they actually see that there's been a lot dealing with economic development done in the last few years. So I think that'd be
That's a good point, and we can address that two ways. I'm thinking we can address that two ways. I have been working more so with the town, and actually that was one of the last things on my agenda, or on my list of things to update on tonight. There was a meeting with the towns that we held on May 3rd, and DHCD actually had Department of Housing and Community Development actually had 2 representatives come down, and every town was represented. And it could be a different title from each town, but it's really the point person for economic development in that town. And so we had a meeting. We talked about the Neighborhood Business Works program. We talked about community legacy grants available, because all of the towns in Kent County are sustainable communities, so they have access to those grants. So we're going to meet quarterly to talk about economic development. They are now on the agenda list. And I say this, and I sincerely mean this, I do economic development for the county, but our growth is designated in our towns and surrounding our towns. So by default, I also work for the towns. So when they need help, I'm there to help them as well. And having another person, which we'll talk about, will also help with that. I'll give you a great example. Joe Manning from the town of Millington is working on the senior housing project, and she has to do a grant through DHCD. And she's never done a grant, and she's part-time in that role with Millington. So I offered to help her with that. And that's the type of things that we can do and share to make sure that these projects actually get off the ground and get moving.
Yeah, and I mean, it may not even hurt to send this same letter to SPY, to the Kent News, because you just named off 9 or 10 different things that have been accomplished that to entertain business to come here and make it more flexible for them to be here, or even business that are here that want to expand. I mean, so many of these things, if you go out here on the street or talked about, they don't think we've done a daggone thing. So there's been a ton done.
Yeah, and we're working more on outreach. I'll be visiting each town meeting as well, talking about the incentives, and especially this House Bill 1295 that just went through legislation this past year. This now makes Kent County used to hear the term distressed county, and Kent County was not designated as a distressed county, which, who wants to be designated as a distressed county? But there were incentives tied to that. So now they call them Tier 1 counties. And now Kent County is going to be a Tier 1 county because they've changed the income measurement from per capita income to medium household income. So now Kent County is a Tier 1 county, and we're eligible for the One Maryland tax credit, as well as now the additional incentives through the More Jobs for Marylanders Act. So we're trying to get the word out more about those. So I agree, we need to do more outreach, and we're working on that. But I want to see if I can try to put something together without making it too complicated. So I'll try that, yeah. Let me see if I can do that.
Give them the bullet points of all the incentives we have now.
Right.
Go to our website, 2-3 clicks, you're there, and you get to see it for yourselves. but at least, like I say, they can read into their minutes, read it to their citizens, whether it's Galena, Millington, Rockall, Chestertown, so they know what's there.
So the One Maryland tax credit, it's an income tax for businesses that invest in an economic development project and create a minimum number of qualified jobs. And there's different tiers for that. I don't want to bore people to tears with the details, because in the end you're going to have to look it up on the website anyway to make sure that you qualify. So that's why I want everyone to know where it is. The More Jobs for Marylanders Act, by becoming a Tier 1 county, a Tier 1 county only has to create 5 jobs now, and it used to be 10. So that really does help us, because we have a lot of smaller manufacturers in Kent County, and just creating 5 jobs will afford them that tax credit. So that's something else that is good. The part that didn't pass of this legislation that we had talked about was being able to include additional industry sectors. That part did not pass through the General Assembly, but the Tier 1 did. So we got half of what we were hoping for. So one of the things that Maryland Opportunity Zones, I don't want to miss talking about that, because there's lots of buzz about that right now. That's designated on a federal level, but the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development is rolling that out. And it's basically the same area as our enterprise zone is now an opportunity zone. So we'll be putting information on the website about that, and there is a conference to help the economic developers understand that on July 31st, and I'll be attending that to get more information to be able to put something on our website. Okay, then the next thing I wanted to share is we did a marketing. You guys know that you increased the marketing budget for economic development. I just want to share, this will be going out in the August, let me make sure I get this right, July-August edition of Expansion Solution magazine. And I also have some extra copies here for anyone in the audience who would like to see it. What we've done is, instead of just putting an ad in a magazine or placing an ad, we've tried to work really hard to make sure that we're negotiating for editorial content when we pay for an ad, so that we get additional exposure for Kent County. Also, we're trying to utilize publications that have a broader reach than just subscribers. So they have a distribution list, but this particular company also goes to trade shows and distributes the magazine as well, so it will get exposure there. So the July-August, for example, will also be handed out at the Great American Truck Show, the International Manufacturing and Technology Trade Show, and the International Economic Development Council 2018 Conference. So we're trying to make sure that we get as much exposure as we possibly can, rather than just placing an ad. So just wanted to share that. I got a lot of updates here. I met Kent's new Senior Business Development Representative with the Maryland Department of Commerce on Friday, Nancy LaJoyce. She has 15 years experience working for a regional chamber in the Baltimore, Washington region. She also has 13 years experience with Manpower, so staffing and workforce development. And she is a Queen Anne's County resident, and she actually lives in Queen Anne, Maryland. So met her and actually worked on an issue with her today. So she's in place. The next update is Emily McCoy is starting on Monday, July 16th, so the administrative assistant will be in place. Just wanted to share that Emily has a master's in business administration. She has business development experience, and she's also recently done marketing and promotion. So I think she'll be a great addition for the county. I think her skills will greatly align with mine, and we'll be able to get a lot done for Kent County. The next staffing is Natalie. from Washington College, our Washington College intern from last year, actually returned to Chestertown June 26th, and she came back to work. She was looking for some part-time hours, and we were able to do that because we still had dollars in the budget, and it was great. She was able to cover for me. She was able to maintain the social media presence that we've had out there. She's also been able to update the business directory and man the office while I was out. So that worked out really well. And she has agreed to stay for the fall and spring semester this year during her senior year. So she will be, she'll just maintain, and we will not have another intern, but we'll have Natalie all year. So that's exciting because she's already trained and she knows the office. So that's great. And then I talked about the meeting with the towns. So, we do plan to meet quarterly and discuss things like this, in addition to inviting them to our Economic Development Commission meetings and trying to be more engaged and make sure that we all know what big projects are going on, and we're all supporting one another. And then the last thing I want to mention, so that wasn't too bad. The last thing I want to mention is that Kent County is a member of the Maryland Economic Development Association. So the county benefits by reduced rates at events and trainings and networking, so economic development benefits. I personally joined the International Economic Development Council, and as a result of that, the county can now take advantage of if there is any training out there at reduced rates. I did that because I'm working on my certification and wanted mentorship from some of those members. So I did that for myself, but it will also benefit the county if there's ever some classes that we want to take, we can get a reduced rate. That's it.
Been busy.
Thank you.
Jane.
Questions for me?
Yes.
Yes.
Movie theater coming along.
Movie theater is coming along. It is a little bit slower than they expected. They do expect to open sometime in August. They had to replace the HVAC units up top, which I think they should have known because they were 20 years old and life expectancy, my understanding, is about 15. So, but it's moving along. I have not talked to Michael Klein since I've been back off vacation, but when I spoke to him last, they were moving ahead with everything, working on the signage, the outside, as well as everything inside is totally gutted. So they're making progress, and they expect to be open in August. Yep. Yes. You're welcome. Thank you.
Public Works Director Mike Moll.
First item we have for you is our blacktop paving project contract. With the start of the fiscal year, we want to get started getting the blacktop moving. We have a proposal from David Bramble to do our blacktop paving. They would be doing that under the state highway contract, which is pretty common to piggyback on that contract. So we're requesting approval of that contract with David Bramble for doing the streets that were listed in the budget.
Second. All in favor?
Okay, thank you. The second item is the aggregate contract extension request. This is the stone that we use for our chip seal on our streets. We have an existing contract with Patuxent Materials. They've been very good to us, providing good service. The contract has a provision for an additional year under the existing pricing. So we're recommending an extension of 1 year for the Patuxent Materials stone contract.
Second. All in favor?
Okay. The last item is informational. It's a letter of agreement with the State Highway Administration for the nuisance weed program. They sent a letter of agreement. It came in late, and they didn't inform us that we had to get it done by July 1st in order to do the work on it. It's a $50,000 contract for us spraying the state highway roads for them. And so what we did was, in order to get the contract approved, Shelley signed off on that we could keep doing the work out there starting July 1st. So we're following up with that. Okay?
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
When did I read our collection system going out to Georgetown, from Galena out to Georgetown? When is the construction supposed to start, or has it?
The notice to proceed was issued for July 9th, actually Monday, and they had the erosion sediment control pre-construction meeting that day. It's a 9-month contract. So the letters went out to the residents that will be connecting to let them know where the contract started, and to make arrangements for a contractor to come out to start locating where the grinder pumps would be. So we're starting to get some questions and inquiries and everything like that. So we'll be following up the letter, that initial letter that went out. I'm working on updating our brochure, our grinder pump brochure. It provides more background in terms of who takes care of the pump, what to do when the pump breaks, what arrangements to be made when we get to the point of connection. But we've got time to work that out. And then, of course, as we get down to the time when it is ready to start, we'll be sending another letter out with more details. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, I have a few items for you this evening. The first of which is the annual agreement verifying the county contributions.
So we have to move that.
I would move it, yes.
Motion to accept.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Next, I have a memorandum of understanding between Maryland's Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services and Kent County. What this is it outlines, it's an MOU that outlines the process for inmate earnings deductions. And this is in accordance with the Justice Reinvestment Act and the Annotated Code of Correctional Services Act, paragraph 9-615.
Make a motion to accept the MOU.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and there has been a request for a waiver of application fees. This is specifically for a waiver of site plan and special exception review fees from the Kent County Public Schools for the bus depot concept. And this is a request of a waiver of $950 in fees.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next, I have Department of Social Services, Legal Services, IGA, or Intergovernmental Agreement. We discussed this a while back. The attorney's fees for our local Kent County Department of Social Services will now pass through Kent County, so we're simply processing the payments and being reimbursed by the Department of Human Services, Maryland's Department of Human Services. So it would be terrific if we could accept that agreement.
Motion to accept.
Second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next, I have a recommendation for appointment on our Commission on Aging. It's to fill an unexpired term, which will end on December 31st, 2020.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
And finally, for you this evening, I have an FY19 contract for the Community Work Program Coordinator. This is an annual contract that is put before you every year.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it.
That's all I have for you this evening.
Anyone from the audience have any questions, comments? Edith? Okay. All right.
I have a few things. We had discussions last year's fiscal budget, so I want to make sure we get followed up on them as quickly as possible. And it'd be inviting school board as well as superintendent to finalize and discuss the Millington building, get some closure on that.
And that's been put in front of the IAC, which will go to the Board of Public Works and then be bounced back to the county as a surplus property. So that's en route.
And I would also like to move a stronger conversation with the Morton complex. We've had several discussions about possibly turning that building into a county complex, including the school board. And if it means we do a long-term MOU or whatever we have to do in order to secure that building, it's going to put $110,000 back in the school's budget if they turn ownership of that building over, which they need the money. It would give them a place with us spending our money to totally remodel that building to be an entity for multiple services of the county instead of us spending tens of millions of dollars to build other buildings that are become mandated, so to speak, in the county. I think that conversation needs to happen soon, so the invite can be put out to Dr. Couch and school board. And I talked to some of the school board members, and they're not all against the concept. So if we get them in here, one school board member even recommended maybe we get together like we do with the college and have a dinner together. You know, a little more. I know it'd still be an open meeting, but sit down, break bread together, and hopefully move this project along. And also, I guess the next one still includes the school. We had discussions about possibly IT funding that wasn't going to happen within their budget. You know, Scott brought us some numbers, rough numbers. I can't speak for my colleagues, but I believe we're a consensus to say we can move that out of a capital expenditure to make sure their IT budget goes forward. I think the paper kind of a couple weeks ago, when I read the paper, it made it seem like we were taking money from the school system in their IT department. That's not the case. We weren't asked for the money.
Correct, and specifically, just for clarification purposes, we're talking about hardware. We're talking about server equipment, a one-time purchase.
And the relationship that our IT department has had with their IT department for the last 3 years has renovated their entire school system's IT. And to take money, if they're taking money out of their budget to say they don't have it to do, I say we go forward and say, no, let's finish the project so our IT can continue to work with them. It just seems like there's a little bit of this going on right now. I wanted to make public record that I believe in consensus we support that. And that it wasn't us that took the money away. And last but not least, I'd like a letter sent if my colleagues, or since William's not here tonight, I started a conversation about the college with Kurt Landgraf in a form of open letter in lieu of taxes, or however we can start to have a conversation that benefits the town, Chestertown, and the county to get the president involved and get their board of trustees involved. This is done all over the country. It's not a new concept to have in lieu of taxes. There are roughly $750,000 of properties that have been taken off the tax roll. If we can come to an understanding to bring some of that revenue back, I don't want all of I don't want all of it, or I don't think the taxpayers want all of it. They bring a lot of other benefits to the county. But to start having that conversation for the benefit of the county, all citizens of the county in the future, I think it's long overdue, perhaps. So if we can make that invitation as well, to at least sit down and have the conversation to see where it's at. I've had a long, extensive conversation with somebody this weekend where it was actually a former Chestertown or councilman that was talking about the pilot programs and how these work throughout the country, and where they've seen them work. That if they have to put it into their funding when they're out campaigning to raise revenue. I mean, if you're raising $25-30 million annually for your endowments and everything, if that's something that they have to do to help the town and the county, then perhaps it's a concept that can be put out there. That it just and I gotta say I wish I'd thought about it 6 years ago and started these conversations 6 years ago. But, you just get through the process, and I think it's time. I think it's time to have that conversation to see where it ends up. So I think they hit them all. Wharton is the main priority. I mean, because we got things to move along here very near future. And
I agree with you about Wharton. That's a project that we've been talked about by this board for quite a long time, and it's I don't know of any good reason why we shouldn't take. I mean, the idea was to close it to save some money. I mean, it's time to utilize it in a different way. The county could benefit by doing it. So I agree. We do need to have that conversation.
I think the school benefits immensely by doing it.
And you had approved a total of $75,000 for a feasibility study regarding public safety. And initially, it was all put in this past fiscal year, FY18, but during the budget process, you split it between FY18 and FY19. None of it was expended in FY18, so it will eventually, all of it will be moved to FY19, and that will help us sort through some of the actual dollars and cents regarding this project.
And if we can get some kind of confirmation back, and again, the cost would be negative to the school system. They would get their 6,000 square feet or whatever they need long term. I mean, we're all county. We're all county operations. So if you're in the same building, and it just makes sense. You know, if you have 27,000 square feet sitting there empty, and we're going to be asked to spend 10 to 12,000 square feet for a sheriff's office at $10 to $12 million was the last number I remember seeing 5 years ago. I mean, if we could spend a third of that into a whole building and renovate it and have everybody under one roof, whether it's the sheriff's office, school board, emergency services, dispatch, it just makes sense. And I think the citizens of the county would absolutely support that over spending multi-millions of dollars elsewhere.
And I tell you, just the fact that they held on to those two schools for a year for no reason, it cost them $150,000 that they could have used for something else. And I'm going to, being Billy brought that up, one other thing that I would like to propose is, and I'll give Dick Goodall some credit for bringing it up at one of our meetings. You know, we are sort of at a loss when it comes to talking about the Board of Ed's budget, look, we can ask a question and we know the exact answer of every dime that's spent within the county. The only thing we have to go by when you're talking about the school board's budget are categories and what we're told, and I think we need to, the two boards need to come together, and if we are going to meet 4 times a month, I would almost dedicate one meeting a month to understanding their budget as well as we understand theirs. And I think we could learn a lot from it. I think there's been things that said that once we looked into them, we didn't find out the same answers. And we lay it out there for everybody, for the whole world to see, and we can look at it, we can ask questions. We can, instead of somebody coming in and saying that our starting salaries are at the bottom, only to find out that we're about 15th or 16th and we're not as bad and some of the other salaries are doing. We need to know that, and we need to be able to see it instead of just taking people's, somebody says something, we take it for granted. We need to be able to look and see that so that we can make educated decisions about those budgets the same way we do ours. So I would reach out to the Board of Ed and ask them to, let's have a meeting and sit down where the elected officials and our finance people come together and dissect. They can, our budget, their budget, everybody understands exactly what's going on, instead of us being almost in the blind by just what somebody tells us and categories. Categories don't mean much to me. I want to know what's going on. And we know that about ours. We don't know it about theirs.
And as Pat mentioned, the schools will be back with their final budget, so that can be the kickoff to those conversations.
Yeah, and this isn't, I mean, I wish some of them were here tonight. I mean, this is our first meeting back since the budget. It's not to be adversarial. I think it's time to move forward from the negative impact that's been put out there for the last 3 or 4 months. That it's not negative. You know, again, and a collaborative approach. And you know, I don't know what happened. I read in the paper as well that, you know, somehow we're underfunding the school budget. But like non-reoccurring costs were put into this year's budget. And I think this has to be clear. We've given non-reoccurring costs for the 5 years, 6 years I've been in this seat. Everything's been put outside that budget, you know, whether this year is $200-some thousand. If we had been asked as a non-reoccurring cost, we have given that money over the last several years. And then that way it didn't impact their MOU or MOE. We did give them $300,000 over MOE this year. $303,000. So to say it's a negative impact, it's only negative because the $228,000 or whatever that number was left in their budget, where if we were asked for it, like last year and the year before, and the computers and all the, we've been generous, I believe. We've been able to manage our budget and be able to assist the school system in whatever way we possibly could in the last, I'm telling you, the 5 years that I've worked with my colleagues, we've absolutely did whatever we could do to help them out. The MOE is tied to a situation where, under the former governor, it locks us into a situation, and it's not as easy as some would think just to increase the MOE, because it locks us into that number forever. This year, we increased MOE, and it's locked us into that new number forever. And technically, next year's non-reoccurring cost that she has in her budget this year, she'll have $228,000 more to spend next year, because if it's non-reoccurring, she's not going to see that same number again. So her MOE has been reset, and I just hope we can come to a consensus and sit down in this room. I do want the board here. I really do want to invite their board to make sure they're in the same room. Everybody's hearing the same thing from this point forward, and these meetings start now, because next year's budget starts in March again. And
Well, really before March.
before March.
Start crunching numbers far before March.
And part of the problem, when you're reading and they have to go back and talk to the unions, those discussions should have happened with us prior to making an agreement, as far as I'm concerned, with a union, to know what kind of money we have. The animosity that's been created this year because promises were made on money we didn't have, I tell you, it was brutal this year. I don't want to see another budget like this again if we can all sit down at the same round table, square table, whatever, and have these discussions moving forward, because this year's budget was insane. So.
And I'll go again in what I said. I think if we understood their budget the way we understand theirs, you'd find out that it's not as bad as what's. I think I think we would all learn a lot. I'll put it that way.
So let's sharpen our pencils and get the invites out.
And I can assure you, we don't have anything to hide, and I'm willing to show anybody anything we got, and I hope everybody. I hope they do. So then we'll learn a lot. All right. Anything else? I'm
good.
I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. We are adjourned.
Roberto. I want to take my little book. Use Jamie, yeah.